Hello and welcome to IndiaPostLive.com, India's first live and interactive news conversation web TV. I'm Prachi Jatanya. In the last couple of days, we've seen a very interesting development in the Modi's government style of functioning. A string of measures have been introduced which actually indicate an autocratic style of functioning that could be an attempt by the Narendra Modi government to make sure that it insulates its cabinet ministry from any possible controversies or an offensive by the opposition. We'll try and get you some more details of what went behind this kind of introduction of his new style of functioning, shall we say. Take a look.
It is generally believed that the huge mandate given by the people to BJP is because of Narendra Modi. And Prime Minister Modi is all set to prove just that, starting right from the top, the Indian bureaucracy. In an unprecedented move, Modi called the top 72 bureaucrats who head various ministries as secretaries for a meeting. He also assured them of a free hand in running the affairs, going to the extent of telling them that they should talk directly to the Prime Minister. So what will be the role of other ministers in this government? Is it Modi's way of giving bureaucracy a jump start after 8 years? Or is it the first sign of India moving towards a presidential style of governance?
A stark contrast from what we've seen with the earlier Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh's style of leading the government. To give us more insight and perspective of what we can expect and what could possibly be the reason behind for this kind of steps taken by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we have in the studio a retired IPS officer and somebody who has been in the Home Ministry for a long time now, Mr. K.H. Subramanian. He joins us in the studio at the conversation. We also have Mr. Amirullah Khan. He's an economist with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us at the studio on IndiaPostLive.com. I'll come to you, Dr. Subramanian. What have been your experiences, in the style of functioning we've seen so far with the Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, and the stark contrast or the change of style with Prime Minister Modi?
You see, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was not a Prime Minister like Narendra Modi, because Narendra Modi has come with a massive majority in Parliament. Therefore, he has a supreme sense of success and having achieved what he wanted to achieve in a very, very convincing manner. So, I am not surprised that he adopts what you call a presidential style of government, but I think he is still learning. He wants to replicate the Gujarat model in Delhi, and that might be problematic because Delhi is not Gujarat. Therefore, I think he is a man who is still learning. I would give him a long rope for some more time, because I feel that his whole style of functioning by bypassing all the cabinet ministers is not the way the government of India functions. In the government of India, the secretary reports invariably to the minister, and the minister is called directly by the Prime Minister, never the secretary. And therefore, it's a new style of government. Perhaps he wants to deliver the goods because the expectations are very high. Very high. And therefore, he wants to be successful. He doesn't want to be a failure like, let us say, Manmohan Singh, for example. Right. So, I think it's a good start, I would say.
Amir, what are your thoughts? We see the slew of measures also trying and probably even using, vetting the kind of personal staff that his cabinet ministers can actually appoint, no relatives, and they will have to be cleared by the PMO. What lies ahead?
Prachi, my take on this, or my suspicion on this, is that maybe the first thing that the Prime Minister is trying to do is to signal to his party that he is the boss. And that is reflected in several things that he has done. For example, putting Alke Advani in his place. No such a senior leader, no position for him. Today, your newspapers reported of how his nameplate was removed without him being informed. So, he's told Mr. Advani that, okay, this is where you stand. He's told Mr. Murli Manohar Joshi that, this is where you be if you want to be comfortable. He's told the parent organization, the RSS, that I am going to define what the NDA will look like. I am going to run the party because I will decide who the president will be. So, I don't think it is a question of presidential versus parliamentary yet. It is a question of me deciding everything. And that is where Dr. Subramanian's point is very important, that when you look at a federal government, and you look at these 70 different departments, can one person, however strong, autocratic, whatever, have the
wherewithal, yes,
to be able to, thanks, I was searching for that word, but to be able to, take all of it
single-handedly manage.
And our whole steel frame, which the bureaucracy is, has been, has evolved because of this compartmentalization. To collapse it and to have this direct relationship is a very strange experiment.
But to actually personally go meet the bureaucracy individually, try and maybe possibly have, indicate that it's not only a confidence booster that I'm meeting you directly and opening lines of communication, but the fact that you report straight away to me. What does that really indicate? How can we read into this?
As a management student, I mean, where we teach chains of command and so on, it seems preposterous, because if you break that chain of command, then you are actually brewing insubordination. It sometimes happens in the police, and Mr. Subramaniam knows more about it, where the top boss goes and contacts the inspectors and sub-inspectors, and therefore the middle level loses complete confidence. Yes. If it happens in the army, it is disaster for war, and that is why this is strange. It is an imitation of the presidential system where the president meets secretaries, but what is important for all viewers to also know is that the secretary in the US is like a minister in India. The secretary is not like our secretary. There the secretary directly reports to the president. There is no chain of command in between. Here a secretary is secretary to a minister and must remain so.
Right.
You see, I don't think, if you look at the number of participants in the PM's recent meetings, he hasn't called the Chief of the Army Staff to come and talk to him directly. He hasn't called the DGs of so many police organizations.
Yes.
So it appears he has gone in a calculated manner, calling only the IAS secretaries, thinking that probably they form the center of governance in India. But basically, it's not a correct approach to governance in the country, because I think the governance in India is a very complex affair in which the central paramilitary forces, the intelligence bureau, the central other intelligence agencies like the RAW and cabinet secretariat, and all these agencies play a part, and they all play an independent part. Now, how the inputs provided by these agencies should be centralized or synthesized at the central level, that is the job of the cabinet secretary, and the cabinet secretary is to place matters before the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister just cannot operate cutting across the channels and going directly to the people. I mean,
and wouldn't that just increase his workload?
I think he is only incapacitating himself and by trying to do this, because he is basically a chief minister who has been transferred to Delhi without any preparation. He has never served in Delhi. He is the first time MP who has become a Prime Minister of India. This is a very, very unusual experience for him. He is trying to, maybe he is trying to experiment whether radical. He can really replicate the Gujarat model into Delhi. Maybe he will learn his lessons. This is what I feel.
What about doing away with the Lal Batti culture? That's what, a fallout could be, that the ministry and bureaucracy will actually be very disgruntled.
Well, that's a great thing which Kejriwal has attempted and successfully implemented. I think all others have tried to imitate him as well. So in that sense, it's a good thing. And I think it's in that sense, the ministers are being put in their place. I think that's a welcome thing. I don't think people will feel necessarily disgruntled. They may even be happy.
Right. Yeah. We also have Mr. Kanhaiya Bhilari joining us now via Skype. He is a contributing editor with Governance Now. Thank you, Mr. Bhilari, for joining us at the conversation on IndiaPostLive.com. If you can hear me, have you been able to listen into what our panelists in the studio are saying?
No, I have not heard.
Basically, we're discussing... Mr. Bhilari, we are trying to discuss what could be possibly the intention or the motive behind trying to remote control the cabinet ministry and making sure that all kind of clearances go via the PMO.
It is a move. I am of the observation that this is a move to centralize the system. He does not believe in decentralization. The system should he should not do like that. What is it? All the secretary will report him. It is ridiculous.
The fact, right? The fact that I was asking Amir, the fact that he wants to have a leaner cabinet, you know, trying to look at possibly making sure that work happens and work happens effectively. That seems to be, you know, a welcome sign.
Most certainly, Praj. I don't think we need so many ministries. We've done fine with less number. But I'm still not convinced whether it is what is going to happen. As I said earlier, to me it looks like the inner party problems continue, and that is why we have this 44-member cabinet. Unfortunately, Gopinath Munde died, so now we have a Nitin Gadkari who is handling transportation, shipping, rural development, water, sanitation, Panchayati Raj. I mean, it's just as if people have just been dumped with various unconnected ministries. I think in the next rollout, the next cabinet expansion, we'll know exactly where it stands, and I won't be surprised if it goes back to that, close to that 71 figure.
Right.
But if we can cut it down, I think that's a welcome move. We don't need that many ministries, certainly.
Right. We also have Dipti Sutaria, who's a social media expert, joining us on Google Hangout. Thank you so much, Ms. Dipti Sutaria, for joining us at the conversation on India Post Live. We are actually discussing what could possibly be any possible fallout, if any, of this strategy by Prime Minister Modi to make sure that he remote controls his cabinet and there is no Lal Batti culture. Besides that, also trying to make sure that there's a firewall insulating his ministers from any possible, you know, offensive by the opposition.
Yeah, I have seen recently in the news that Modi ji has said there should be no controversial statements from any minister's end. They have to be very, very particular about their work, whatever they are doing. And even about the bureaucrats, what he has called, he had been calling for a meeting and all. He's very clear about that. I want work, you know, means I don't want anything. And if you're speaking about this Lal Batti culture kind of things and all, getting into the VIP, VVIP shoes and bringing your relatives in between, and the similar kind of culture which Congress has been harping since last 60 years, he's not gonna be into that at all. 24/7 he is available. And recently you could have seen that when he called his ministers, he had only given 10 minutes to them to reach immediately to his desk so that, you know, they can present their presentations before him. So I think this is what the country wants, this kind of a PM one wants. And now it is only the acid test he himself has gone through. Now comes the acid tests for all these ministers, the bureaucrats. How are they gonna behave, their behavioral patterns, as well as what their work really speaks. Even a single babu who's sitting somewhere at the end of a courtroom, or maybe an IAS officer's, IPS officer's office, has to really come down with some kind of work and performance. That's what I can say about it.
Interesting. And I want to bring in Mr. Bhelari again. Mr. Bhelari, as a journalist, part of the media, do you feel then this kind of stonewalling of, information, flow of information by making sure that none of the ministers directly address a press conference or talk to the media? They can only put out an official statement on Twitter.
You know, this action and this exercise of Mr. Narendra Modi is, and I am seeing that he is inching towards the dictatorship. What is it? It is not good in the democracy. You should give free hand to your minister, who should have responsibility to deal with the concerned secretaries and officials. And should be in direct touch with the ministers, not to the secretaries.
Right.
Look, you see, the British developed a model of district administration in which the DM was the kingpin of governance at the district level, and the DM controlled all the departments, including the police department. Probably Modi wants to be the DM of India. Because, you know, the joke in those days was Indira Gandhi emergency and so on. We used to talk about the DM, CM and PM. You know, right. It's a kind of governance runs like that. Modi has no experience. I think he's just learning. You know, it's all right in Gujarat, you know, you have an intelligence officer who will do everything you say. You have a minister like, you know, this guy,
Amit Shah.
Kala Dadi and Safed Jadi, as they say, he was known as Kala Dadi. The Kala Dadi was running the damn thing, The police were going all around, people are getting killed and so on. I think he is trying to replicate that kind of model here. He has also selected 2 officers from the Vivekananda Foundation. Yes. One of them is Ajit Doval, whom I know very well, yes. Who is now the National Security Advisor. Other one is Principal Secretary to the PM. I do not know anything about the Principal Secretary. But he has suddenly picked them up from Vivekananda Foundation, and this foundation is known to have close relationship with the BJP RSS link. Therefore, you see, I think the man is lacking in sense of security.
But he's always known as an able administrator. The Gujarat model is being talked about amongst a lot of people even abroad. Don't you feel then that kind of efficiency in administration will be able to actually improve the kind of work output that we can expect from a government?
I don't think so, because I think the Gujarat model is only talk. Nothing more than that.
Amir?
He was a centralized, his functioning is very personalized and centralized, and he wants to undercut his own ministers. I don't think the ministers will eventually accept such a model.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll take off from there. That's a very critical point. In administrative theory, as it exists in India, what do ministers do? Right? The ministers make policy, and they have this bureaucracy that implements it. So there is a policy maker who legislates, and that's the job of the minister through the parliament, and the job of the secretariat is to implement that decision. If you go directly to those who implement, then that vital issue of policy making doesn't exist. So where will policies come from? You either expect the secretaries to make policies, which is what is sadly being done. Secretaries have been asked to make presentations. That's not their job. Their job, see, secretaries, and we often have this tendency, and I noticed Deepthi also doing that, to run down the public administration system in India, to the bureaucracy. They have really been the steel frame of India. If you see, people have been very, very dismissive of them, but they have run the country. Yes. If you see the major acts of omission, commission, communalism, corruption, it's all been the politicians. But we continuously run down the bureaucracy. Here is the classic case that these guys don't work, so I'll go there and keep them tight. I will go and inspect whether they are coming to office at 9 o'clock and going at 6 o'clock. That's not how you deal with people who are 60 years old, who've come through such great work, and treat them as if they have to be monitored to be able to deliver.
But the problem seems then the question still remains that have they been efficient in delivering the results? Has the public administration, the bureaucracy really been efficient all these years?
On that we can have a separate discussion, and in that one can obviously show that there have been severe deficiencies, and most administrative reforms commissions have pointed this out. But why does the administrative system function the way it does? That's precisely because we have the kind of politicians we have. Our system is such that I as an administrator will do exactly what you tell me as a policy maker, as a leader. So the fault really and the change really we expect is at that level, and that's why we go for elections. That's why we give this new party a mandate that is much higher than a simple majority, because we expect them to change. We don't expect the bureaucracy to change, because that's the steel frame. That's why it is called the steel frame.
I'll bring in Deepthi at this point. Deepthi, the fact that they are not going to allow visitors to carry mobile phones, just to make sure that they firewall, any kind of loopholes, that there are no sting operations by anybody.
Lakshman doesn't happen again. That's
yes,
the whole problem.
Yes.
I see the problem slightly differently, because
so what Amin has really said right now is that the task of bureaucrats, they know it well. Okay. When it comes down to politicians, yes, there were certain politicians who were, doing the task of not only chewing tobacco or chewing palms while, getting into their desk, getting out the desk, and not only they were doing this, they were also, I'm sorry to say, two male personas are sitting here. they used to also look into much chipping into the pornographic sites, going into mobile phones and all. So I think, don't you think that something is coming better? हम उसी दुनिया में वापस चले जाए जहाँ कभी मोबाइल फोन्स हुआ ही नहीं करते थे, तब भी सरकारें चलती थी। इंदिरा गांधी के जमाने में आप देखिए कि सोशल मीडिया अभी तो मोदी जी को लेकर आया है एंड आज जिता दिया है, लेकिन जब when social media was not there, Indira Gandhi was meeting one to everybody, and if Indira Gandhi would have been alive today, मैंने पिछली बार भी कहा था, तो इंदिरा गांधी would have had won by triple the votes what Modi ji has won, because she was again a magnanimous woman and she had an aura, and she was one to the normal the people. Similar is condition of Modi ji. Now हमको अपना digestive system को सुधारना है. Let the digestive system of the corrupted bureaucrats now be changed. Let them get into the order that yes, they have to change their systems to evade, to weed off this corruption. This is what Modi ji wants. And somebody is getting up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, somebody is 60 or 62, is, of course, if they were very honest and they were really working, as Amir is saying, that we can show the results sometimes, when we can talk in the next topic, and whenever you hold the next discussion. So I would even like to see what all the Congress government has been giving all these years. अगर ऐसा कुछ होता तो मुझे लगता है कि आज का दिन like Modi ji would have been prime minister. But then parallelly what I think is I'm not saying no, yes, the things never happened, they happened, but Congress was lazy, the people were seriously lazy, and now you can see not a personal comment, but then only I find Shashi Tharoor more amicable. Being very, very honest, Shashi Tharoor, a minister like Shashi Tharoor is very amicable. He is updated with everything. I don't know about others, but then, yes, bureaucrats, they have to now follow the language of whatever the most honorable Prime Minister says. And mobile phones and all, if they are being banned, this is very good. This is very good because reason being is that there will be no disturbance of the media, and media will come out with something true and honest. They should come with true and honest, but yes, the stories should not be cooked inside. That is my say on this. That BJP को भी आना है सामने, तो they have to come, very unbiased. They have to tell the truths to they should have the transparency actually, rather than hiding things inside or not allowing these mobile phones. That is a fear from media.
Right.
I'm saying that is also a fear from media. You should not be afraid or scared of media. You should tell them whatever you are doing, at least one person from every channel should be there. If you are not allowing any phones, mobile phones and these other things, they should hold a pen and a diary. Earlier, where were people having this?
Okay, Dipti, we get your point. Amir wants to add.
This is very, I find this rather nostalgic. 10 years ago, when Manmohan Singh became Prime Minister, the first stories about him, to remind you youngsters, Deepti, were of how he would come to office at 8 in the morning. There was this very famous story where he came to office much before the fellow with the keys had come. Right. So he had to stand outside. So these are stories. I think this kind of thing is nice. It's very personal. That I don't think is something we need to get taken aback or taken away with. The problem I see is that if you start policing senior officers, if you start telling them that I am going to watch every move you make, then you are going to take away that power that our civil servants have of being able to watch policy, of being able to point out where it goes wrong, where it goes unconstitutional. They complained to him saying that the CBI is after them. Now they are going to complain to somebody saying the Prime Minister is after us. So it is going to be a serious issue. The bureaucracy in its really, I am not batting for the bureaucracy in any way, but I am saying that in the Indian system, the policy maker needs a very well informed, a very free, independent bureaucracy who certainly has to deliver and has to show that at the end of the year they've achieved, they've implemented. But it can't be done by making them behave like schoolboys. Today you don't even do this in school where you say no mobiles allowed. So you have to be a little careful on how you treat senior people.
Right, but we'll try and wrap up the show with final comments, Dr. Subramanian. But one final thing, that there seems to be a complete change in the kind of way the bureaucracy in Gujarat functioned. A lot of people said they are more efficient, they do their homework, the files are updated, and only then they go to their chief minister back then, who was Narendra Modi. So do you think that it will increase their efficiency, presidential style, or not?
You see, in India, efficiency is judged mainly at the district level, not at the central level or at the state level. So you have to see, there is a national policy, there is a district level implementation. There may be a huge gap between national policy and the way it is implemented at the lower level, grassroots level. If you look at the writings of people like John Rees and others, you see that the Gujarat model is not all that is made out to be. There is a lot of gap in what is happening, and also, if you look at the human development indicators in Gujarat, Gujarat is not particularly different from Tamil Nadu, for example. In fact, I think Tamil Nadu may be regarded as much more efficient.
So you do share Mr. Kishore Bellari's concerns that it is a very dictatorial style of functioning.
Well, it's perhaps you can call it, it's a kind of term which you are using. I would say that Modi is still trying to groping his way around to see how the system can be made to deliver. There are 600 odd districts in India. Everything is headed by, each district is headed by a district magistrate. There is an enormous Panchayati Raj setup. They are also implementing programs. 29% of the development activities in India are implemented by the Panchayati Raj institution. How is Modi going to bring the Panchayati Raj institutions into the picture? These are all key questions which arise, and I don't think he has addressed any of them seriously.
Interestingly, and on that note, I will read out Prime Minister Modi's official comment statement when he met the bureaucrats. He said, Prime Minister has asked the secretaries to identify and do away with archaic rules and procedures as they are leading to avoidable confusion. Comments on archaic rules and procedures is what, he did speak directly. One of his tweets said that we talked about institutionalizing processes as they will last longer than any individual and give better results to the people. I shared my views on the importance of teamwork and use of technology. So he seems to be stressing on the fact that it should be a tweeting government. Don't get into interacting directly with the press or with stakeholders, but make sure that officially your stand goes out through Twitter. Amir.
No, Prachi, I really appreciate this, and that is what I'd like to see. Beyond this gloss of 8 in the morning till 8 at night and calling people directly and feeding them whatever, I would really like to see the policy. That's why I have elected a government. I want to see policy. In the last 8 days, I haven't seen any policy statement come out. There have been ministers made, ministers removed,
and no single press conference held by any of the cabinet ministers.
Nobody
I think only Prakash Javadekar met a few people
in the press.
They are scared of going to the press without the permission of the PM.
Before he died made a statement.
Right.
Yeah.
But I really like to see them make that policy, and if we can actually do that, our archaic rules, 3000 laws, most of them going back to 1830 and whatever, some of them having to do with the police, if they can actually do that, that's the statement one is waiting for.
Interesting. Kanhaiya Bellari ji, one final comment before we try and wind up the show, sir.
While addressing the secretary level officers, Mrs. Modi, says that one attempts admission by traveling 4 dhams, and the files, go 32 times in circle, and even that after that they did get salvation. While 4 dhams, in days to come you will see that the files will go only to 1 dham, that is Modi dham.
Modi Dham. On that note, we'll get one final comment from Ms. Dipti before we sign off and get our viewers to give their Twitter feed and comments. Ms. Dipti, one final comment from you. Do you see a presidential form of governance now with Prime Minister Modi's style or strategy that we see?
It's too early. Let us see these 100 days, let us go ahead, and I respect the statements of Dr. Subramanian as well as Amir. So I think it's too early. Let us wait and watch, and accordingly, whatever the results will definitely come out, and then again we'll be here for discussions.
Great. On that note, we'll get our viewers involved. Do participate and put in your views and feedback on what do you think of the Prime Minister's new style of functioning. Definitely a leaner cabinet, but direct communication with the bureaucracy. Is there going to be a possible fallout with the cabinet ministers being disgruntled? What can be expected in the days ahead? Will India see a new form, an autocratic style with an autocratic Prime Minister? That seems to be a big concern, and a lot of key questions being asked by our panelists here in the studio as well as those who've joined us online. So do put in your comments and tell us what do you think about Prime Minister Modi's style of functioning. Brand Modi, now Prime Minister Modi, what would you like to see in the days ahead, the 100 days agenda? Do write in, and thank you so much Dr. Subramanian for joining us. His experience in the Home Ministry definitely a value addition to our discussion, and Mr. Amirullah Khan for his great perspective. Thank you to Mr. Kanhaiya Bhellari and Ms. Dipti Sutaria for those views and insight as well. Thank you to our viewers for watching. Stay tuned for more interesting conversations and lively discussions on IndiaPostLive.com. Use our Twitter handle @IndiaPostLive. Thank you.